Check, check, check. All right, we'll get underway. Oh, I think I'm supposed to give 1 minute warning. 1 minute warning. All right, we're going to pretend that was 1 minute. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to meeting number 43 of the Planning and Housing Committee. I'd like to first acknowledge that Ottawa is located on unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation, whose culture and presence have nurtured and continue to nurture this land. We'll do a roll call. I have regrets from Councillors Lowe and Johnson.
Councillor Brockington.
Here.
Councillor Curry.
Here.
Councillor Dudas.
I'm here.
Councillor Johnson. Councillor Kavanaugh.
Present.
Councillor Kelly.
Present.
Councillor Kitts.
Here.
Councillor Lowe. Councillor Tierney. Councillor Troster.
Here.
Vice Chair Gower.
Here.
Chair, you have quorum.
Thank you very much. Before I get underway with the substantive portion of the agenda, I would just like to note that Lauren Reeves is departing the city of Ottawa. And I just wanted to recognize the work that she's done. Lauren has worked for the city for 30 years, devoting her entire career to public service, most recently as the manager of strategic housing projects, the team that oversees the city's capital program for affordable housing. Lauren was instrumental in developing the spending plan for the Housing Accelerator Fund. Lauren and the team worked tirelessly with not-for-profit housing partners to create a pipeline of shovel-ready projects. Thanks to this plan and funding from all levels of government, Ottawa is meeting its annual affordable housing targets for the first time in the last decade. Lauren successfully oversaw the development and implementation of the new affordable housing CIP, the tax incremental equivalent grant, which has resulted in over 400 new affordable housing units delivered by the private sector. Her previous expertise in real estate has also been instrumental in supporting the city's first municipal land strategy, which is swiftly unlocking public lands for affordable housing. Next month, a disposal report is being presented to the Finance Committee to permit 8 city properties to be provided to not-for-profit partners to support even more affordable housing. Lauren has further reduced barriers for nonprofit partners by working with PDBS to advance the first omnibus zoning amendment for city properties of its kind, preemptively rezoning them for residential uses. These are just a few examples of Lauren's recent accomplishments. We are going to miss the work that she's been doing, and on behalf of this Planning and Housing Committee, I'd like to thank her very much for her work. Thank you, Lauren. All right, moving on. This is a public meeting to consider the proposed comprehensive official plan and zoning bylaw amendments listed as items 4.1 to 4.4 on today's agenda. For the items mentioned, only those specifically identified in the Planning Act who make oral submissions today or written submissions before the amendments are adopted may appeal the matter to the Ontario Land Tribunal. In addition, the applicant may appeal the matter to the Ontario Land Tribunal if Council does not adopt an amendment within 90 days of the receipt of an application for a zoning bylaw amendment and 120 days for an official plan amendment. To submit written comments on these amendments prior to their consideration by City Council on March 26, 2025, please email or call the committee or council coordinator. Are there any declarations of interest? Nope. Are the minutes of our meeting February 19th confirmed? Thank you. Item 4.1 is the zoning bylaw and OPA for 50 Bayswater Avenue and 1088 Somerset Street West. There is a technical motion on this one, which I'd ask the Vice Chair to read out.
Thank you, Chair. Whereas the report recommends amending the zoning bylaw to permit a mixed-use development fronting onto Somerset Street West and Bayswater Avenue, and whereas an amendment to the report is required to clarify the location of the step-back requirement, therefore be it resolved that Planning and Housing Committee amend the report for 50 Bayswater Avenue and 1088 Somerset Street West by amending Document 3, Details of Recommended Zoning, by replacing the text, despite any provisions to the contrary, a required 2.0 meter building step back more than the provided setback from the front lot line may be provided at the 13th and 15th story, with the text, Despite any provisions to the contrary, at least one step back of 2.0 meters is required at or above the 6th story, but no higher than the 15th story. And therefore be it further resolved that there be no further notice pursuant to subsection 3417 of the Planning Act as amended.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair. I hadn't anticipated a presentation on this one. It's in Mighty Kitchissippi Ward, and I'm supportive. Do any members want this one held? No. To the applicant, I see Rod is here. If the committee is, and Tyler, sorry, if the committee is prepared to carry this, do you still wish to speak? No. Is this item carried? Thank you very much. We'll move on to item 4.2, the zoning bylaw amendment for 1950 Scott, 312 and 314 Clifton Road. I hadn't anticipated a presentation on this one. Oh, shit. Oops. Is the technical amendment carried on the previous item? Thank you. So at 1950 Scott, 312, 314 Clifton Road, another big application in Mighty Kitchissippi Ward. I'm supportive. I hadn't anticipated a presentation on this one. Do any members of the committee want this one held? No. To the applicant team, who I'm not sure are here. Oh, if we are prepared to carry this, do you still wish to speak? Nope. Good to go. So is that item carried?
Carried.
You. Moving on to item 4.3, the official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment for part of 1104 Halton Terrace. I hadn't anticipated a presentation on this one. I believe Councillor Curry wanted to say a couple words.
Yep. Do you want me to do that now or?
Please.
Sure. All right. So I will be supporting this. I gave lengthy comments in the report, as I'm sure you've all read. And, you know, the back and forth on this, which I think is how these applications have to go, is very helpful. Community was confused, you know, an official plan was just approved as per my comments, and people believe there to be 4 stories. 5 stories came as a result of the land on the Bidgood farm being quite sloped. So they needed to make it 5 stories, but there was confusion because there was a big community design plan. The community all felt it was going to be 4 stories. In the end, what has happened is there have been some really important concessions by the developer, and I'd like to thank Christine and Brian very much for that, and Vivici and Derek for helping us figure it all out. But there will be a new sidewalk that will allow for much better transportation, given there will be a school next across the road very shortly. And Old Carp Road, if you've ever driven it, has been the biggest challenge for former councillors of Ward 5 and 4, and Councillor Kelly and I had excellent meetings to figure out what could happen there. And there will be much better traffic calming. You know, it's a 40-kilometer-an-hour road and people drive 80. It's quite the situation. So really looking forward to that being a better road for everyone and safer for a lot of kids that get picked up on school buses there. But that wouldn't have come about if there wasn't such good community consultation, involvement, and help by staff and the developers. So I just wanted to make that comment because, you know, overall the community was not happy at first and it was a long road, but here we are today. So I will be supporting it. Anyways, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Curry. Thank you very much to staff. Christine and team, if the committee is prepared to carry this, do you still wish to speak? Nope. So is that item carried?
Carried.
Thank you very much. Item 4.4 is the zoning bylaw amendment for 785 Cope and 130, 132, 134, 136, 138, 140, 142 Dagenham. We hadn't anticipated a presentation for this. Does anyone want it held? No. To the applicant team from Claridge and Novatech. I'm not sure. Is anyone in the room?
Online, Mr. Chair.
Hi, Simran. If the committee is prepared to carry this, do you still wish to speak?
No.
Okay. Is this item carried? Thank you very much. Otherwise on the agenda from the Office of the City Clerk, the Planning and Housing Committee inquiries and motions for the period ending March 7th, 2025. Is that received? We have no in-camera items, and I am aware of one notice of motion. Councillor Kavanaugh, do you want to move ahead with your notice?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chair. It's a long one. I think I'm going to double the time of the meeting with it, so bear with me. And I do want to acknowledge that staff have asked me to do some changes, but I got it at the last minute. So I'm going to read the original and we'll work together. So I'll be working with staff. Okay. So whereas in mid-2023, Greenfield Residential Land Survey received to Planning and Housing Committee on February 5th, 2025 states staff estimate that this provides for a 24-year supply exceeding the 15-year supply requirement of the PPS and is more than sufficient to meet any potential increases in greenfield demand until the next official plan update, particularly when less greenfield development occurred than projected in the last 5 years. And whereas, according to the same report, the intensification rate for this 5-year period represents 59%, whereas official plan targeted a minimum of 42%. And whereas the city has acknowledged that it is in a financial crisis, and whereas the city has raised taxes and introduced service efficiencies as a result of this crisis, and whereas the city currently has a $3.8 billion deficit in maintenance and replacement of recreation and other buildings, and whereas in 2024, City Council unanimously endorsed the Fairness for Ottawa campaign started by the mayor, aimed at getting more provincial and federal help to cope with financial crisis. And whereas the infrastructure master plan estimates the cost of providing water and wastewater services to the Taywin community at approximately $591 million. And whereas these costs do not include other necessary capital expenditures such as transportation, infrastructure, and other city services, whereas these costs also do not include associated maintenance, operational, and life cycle costs that will be incurred over the lifetime of this infrastructure, and whereas the province unilaterally expanded Ottawa's urban boundary in 2022, overriding the city's official plan, whereas the Auditor General of Ontario and Integrity Commissioner raised concerns about improper developer influence in provincial land use decisions, and whereas public opposition and environmental concerns prompted the province to reverse these expansions in 2023, restoring municipal planning authority, and whereas staff noted in the new official plan growth management strategy report, document 3, that this vast area, the Taywin community, is not contiguous to existing economic clusters, so it would not have immediate synergistic relationships with the existing economic base of the city. Whereas staff advised in the same report that due to presence of sensitive marine clays, the Taywin community will likely face grade raising restrictions, meaning that all housing would rely permanently on sump pumps for foundation drainage. And whereas during the urban boundary expansion discussions, staff did not previously consider the Taywin lands due to their distance from existing and planned rapid transit lines, and therefore never evaluated the Taywin area using the criteria adopted by council, including the Big Five moves. And whereas the decision to add Taywin lands to Ottawa's urban boundary was a decision made by council via amending motion at committees, whereas this precluded a public consultation process, including consultation with relevant Indigenous groups. And whereas the provincial policy statement, PPS 2020, provides guidelines for municipalities and planning authorities to consult all relevant Indigenous communities whose rights, interests, and territories might be affected by planning and development decisions. And whereas the City of Ottawa requires consultation with Indigenous groups during the policy planning development approval process, and whereas the official plan reconciliation action plan and other municipal policies mandate that consultation is required when policies, plans, or development may affect Indigenous rights, interests, or lands, and this applies to all relevant Indigenous communities, not just the Algonquins of Ontario. And whereas the City of Ottawa did not engage in a meaningful consultation regarding the urban boundary expansion with the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation Tribal Council, and whereas Grand Chief Savannah McGregor of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation Tribal Council has expressed opposition to the Taywin development, stating, We want to make it abundantly clear that just because a landowner whose realty corporation is partly owned by one Algonquin First Nation and self-identified Algonquin people does not qualify as an act of reconciliation with the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. Therefore, be it resolved that staff in the policy planning branch of the Planning, Development, and Building Department be directed to initiate an official plan amendment to delete the Category 2 Future Neighborhood Overlay New Taywin Community Lands from Schedule C-17 to the official plan of the City of Ottawa, and be it further resolved that the official plan amendment also contain the necessary provisions to delete provisions elsewhere in the official plan with reference to the Taywin community as Category 2 lands, and be it further resolved that the official plan amendment process initiated as a result of this motion include all the necessary process and public consultation to permit the amendment to be adopted by City Council, and be it further resolved that planning staff provide their recommendations through the amendment and accompanying report as to how the residential and non-residential development that will no longer be in the proposed Taywin development can be provided for in the official plan. Be it further resolved that the public meeting for the consideration of the official plan amendment be scheduled no later than the third quarter of 2025. And be further resolved that planning staff be directed to explore how land use planning could contribute to meaningful reconciliation and consultation with the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation Tribunal Council. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kavanagh. So that is a motion for consideration at our next meeting. Are there any other notices of motion?
Chair, can I do not have a notice of motion. May I just make a request of staff, given the motion that's just been introduced? If we could get a memo from staff before the next planning committee that clearly outlines what the impacts will be if council endorses this motion, just so we're crystal clear going into the meeting what this actually means, what the impacts will be, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
I'm going to treat that as a direction and ask staff whether they're willing to undertake it.
Chair, normally when it's a notice of motion, we do get an opportunity to write the comments in when this comes back to planning committee. So,
and you've heard from Councillor Brockington sort of the scope of the comments that he's looking for. Is that something that you can accommodate?
yes, we will put it in the report itself, which will then you'll have the agenda and the report items. So you're asking for it to be before. Even in advance of that.
Just my experience is usually staff don't provide any report or comments. This is just a notice of motion. It will appeal before us without any staff report or comment. So
I think there's a disconnect on the process here.
The general manager is correct that for most notice of motion, there are not substantial staff comments, but we are given the opportunity to comment on motions, notice of motions at committee between the time the notice is given and the time the motions are introduced. I believe it can be anticipated that the comments in this case will be more substantial than you typically see.
Okay, so I've given to understand that Councillor Brockington is satisfied with that. So we'll look forward to those comments. Any other notices of motion? No. Are there any inquiries? We have no other business. We are adjourned until our next meeting, which is Wednesday, April the 9th, 2025. Thank you very much, colleagues.